Uh, Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Somerville Commission Historic Preservation Commission meeting of November 16th. The time is 6:48 p.m. And I would like to call this meeting to order. First, let me read our blurb here. The pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation. An audio recording of these proceedings will be available upon request to historic@somervillemass.gov. Before we go to our first case, let's introduce ourselves. Going in clockwise on my screen, we have Mr. Bauer.
I'm Dick Bauer. I'm an attorney and was trained as a city planner, and I live in Spring Hill.
Mr. Bingham.
Alan Bingham. I'm a resident of Ward 6 and a historic homeowner.
Vice Chair Kelly.
Hi, I'm Robin Kelly. I'm the Realtor representative on the commission and also a historic homeowner in Ward 3 Union Square.
And Mr. Wiley.
My name is Adam Wiley. I'm a resident of Ward 2, and I am a construction manager and contractor.
Thank you. I'm Eric Parks. I'm the chair, architect, resident of Ward 3, historic homeowner, and our staff. Wendy.
Hi, I'm Wendy Checkwitz. I am a preservation planner and planner with the City of Somerville.
And I'm Sarah White. I am a senior zoning and preservation planner with the City of Somerville.
All right. So our first case or hearing is an advisory review for CPA HP funding projects. It's for 59 Cross Street. And this is for the restoration of exterior windows. Are we still on for this, and are they here?
So, Mr. Chair, that was a mistake in the agenda, and I don't anticipate them coming. I don't believe they're in the attendees list. Sarah, do you see them?
Correct. You're correct, Wendy. They're not. Yep.
So yes, this is a mistake on the agenda. We can move on to the next portion.
That's no vote required on that, so we're just gonna pass over it. The next is an alteration to local historic district property, HPC ALT 2021.54, 49/55 Davis Square. Applicant is the Somerville Theater. Owner is BF Somerville Properties LLC. And the application is for the installation of a sign and the retroactive commission approval for window installation. Do we have someone here from that applicant?
Wendy, I have Ann Vigorito. Ann, are you here for that property?
Yes, I am. And I'm also joined by Richard Freeman, who is the owner of the Somerville Theater, his architect, Diane Lim, as well as Reginald. He's the contractor and did some work, and he was involved, so he is here. So they're all here. They can just be unmuted, but they will stay muted unless they speak.
Okay, they've all been unmuted on our side. And for anybody who does speak, who is here for to make a comment or is here representing an applicant, please make sure every single time that you speak to say your name for the record, because we do record this. And so we need to know who is speaking for the recorded record.
Well, good evening, everyone. Ann Vigorito, 424 Broadway, Somerville. I am the attorney for the applicant. It's 4955 Davis Square. This is the Somerville Theater. I'm sure everyone is familiar with the Somerville Theater in Davis Square. This just, during the pandemic, they, of course, were shut down for quite a bit of time. And during that period, they came up with a thought of moving forward into the 21st century. And they removed 2 of the theaters and they created what they call the Crystal Ballroom. And many, many years ago, I was told by Richard Freeman, he gave me a history lesson, that there was the Crystal Ballroom at the theater. So it's obviously new on the inside, state of the art, but they did recreate this. It's a place for live entertainment, it's a venue for, weddings, birthday parties, whatever you may want to have, because they have the capability of, having live entertainment. There's a bar, there's a place for food. So this has come a long way. We're here relative to the signage for that, as well as the retroactive on the windows. The windows are identical as to what was there previously. And, Richard Freeman is here. He could speak a little further about the window situation. I mean, they were at a point where they had to replace these windows. They were in some bad shape, but that is in a nutshell why we were here before you this evening. I know we've sent quite a bit of materials, pictures of the sign. We've also sent some photos of what the theater looked like over the years with different signage and so forth. So I thought maybe, since I would be brief on why we're here, and perhaps hearing from the commission on their views and thoughts on this.
Mr. Chair, if I can interject, we received the materials that she is speaking about, referring to the older photos of the theater only yesterday, which was too late to pass on, and so it's not officially part of their packet. If they would like to present something, we can always have them share the screen.
I mean, I don't have them in a presentation format. They were just for informational purposes, just to show what signage looked like over the years. But we are here on the two matters, and I don't know if the commission would want to start with the windows first and then talk about the signs, or the sign, whatever the commission would prefer.
I don't know that it really matters much which we go with first. Does anybody have a particular preference?
No.
Since I happen to be looking at it, let's just start with the windows. So the existing windows, just to get my bearing straight, were aluminum, is that correct? Or metal?
That's what the report indicates.
Yes.
May I speak?
Okay. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Diane Lim. I'm the architect for the project. So I can explain a little bit about the replacement windows to what were there previously. So previously there was a metal clad windows, 1/1, double hung windows, and at the beginning, we didn't anticipate to replace them, but once we started to uncover these exterior conditions, we realized that the previous windows were not only just one, they were not really sufficient to the existing the weather the energy code and etc. So we figured that it was we needed to replace the windows, but obviously all over the existing masonry openings. But during the pandemic, we couldn't go through necessarily the proper process. We had it in mind, but there was a sort of a little bit of a miscommunication. So even though we were aware of the getting in front of you guys before we replaced the windows and ordered the windows, and then it kind of happened backwards. However, the new windows we put them over the masonry opening are more historically correct in terms of the type of windows they are and the way they are made. So it's not just a kind of a flat, it has a lot more definition to the overall window profiles. So we feel that they're more appropriate from what they were before. So that's a sort of a background of how this window situation took place.
Okay, thank you. What were the windows were metal clad wood, or are they completely metal?
They were completely metal, and then there was also just a single pane window. So obviously, they were not going to be sufficient to the current energy code, you know, situation. So we knew that it needed to be double hung, and that we also wanted to maintain the overall profile of the windows themselves. And there are several the arch top transom window composition that used to be completely walled over that we were able to uncover, and they were in a really bad shape. So obviously, like, you know, we needed to replace them within, and basically try to kind of go back to what they were part of the overall envelope of the building.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else want to add anything from your group? If
I
not,
think, you know, relative to the windows, I mean, I think it was, you know, they were in a situation where, as the architect stated, they had to be replaced, and the, you know, the current windows didn't reach the, you know, weren't sufficient for energy code qualifications, and they did apply, you know, to replace those windows through the Inspectional Services Division.
yeah,
You know, they are in, and I think there are photos of what they look like with your original packet. I could be mistaken, but I thought they were.
there are, yes. And the new ones are the JELD-WEN. Did I see them correctly?
Yeah, so they are JELD-WEN windows, but obviously they were custom made to the existing openings and the profile.
Okay, and are they clad?
So basically the clad on the outside and the wood inside, so they can be painted, but the overall, the profile of the openings and with the 1/1 division is a lot more, I think, historically appropriate because of shadow lines and whatnot that we were able to get from the JELD-WEN windows. From the metal clad that we had before, it was really flat as far as the profile was concerned.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, may I
Sorry if
ask,
sorry, go ahead, Robin, or Vice Chair Kelly.
could I ask for clarification as to how many windows were replaced? Is it just on the second floor on the front facade of the building? Or were there windows replaced on the third floor or along the side of the building?
Just on the second floor, where the new, previously office space and the two small movie theaters were. So basically from the Somerville Marquee over to the side street and to the backwards on the second level.
So it's the entire second floor, not just the facade, because the report that we received only shows photos of the front.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And I'm sorry if I missed it, but are the new windows, are they also aluminum clad or are they vinyl clad? Because I thought most JELD-WEN windows I usually deal with are usually vinyl clad.
They're vinyl clad, but they are paintable.
And are they currently painted, or is there a plan to paint them?
They are, I believe, painted to the color there was before, which is white.
I will jump in and say, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but I think if this was brought to us ahead of time, we probably would not approve vinyl clad windows on a building like this.
Correct.
So that's slightly problematic and worth discussion, I think.
Yep.
I wouldn't have recommended a JELD-WEN clad vinyl window for this building. That's for sure.
May I ask a question to staff? How would this have gotten through without it coming before us? How are they going to get permission the permit to install the windows without this coming before us?
It was a surprise to us too, because they have come before us for the other work that they need to do, or that they have done, including the interior reconfiguration. So that they did submit applications for that. I'm not sure if this just got missed by ISD. I can look while we're online here to see when the actual permits were applied for in the ISD permitting system. So I can have a little more information for you in a few minutes. But it was a surprise to us too that it had been done.
May I also ask a question of staff? In the instances, which this is now at least the second time where we've seen an oversight in ISD, can we begin tracking who has signed off on these permits in ISD so that we have a log of when these errors have occurred and if there's any pattern as to who is making these kinds of mistakes, where there's a compromise to what might have been approved by historic and thereby creating difficulties for property owners and excess cost potentially if we find that what has been completed is not at all appropriate and has to be replaced.
Yep, we can definitely start tracking that. Wendy and I will come up with a system that is appended to our tracking sheet otherwise. Yep. Hold tight and then we'll look into the permitting system.
I want to add to that though, this is a long time historic property and without any tracking system at all, the owners of it ought to know better than to make major changes without having come to us, and they shouldn't need to have inspectional services reject their application and say, no, we can't approve it till you go to historic preservation.
Sorry. Can I just kind of clarify one thing? So I thought that they were vinyl clad, but like my contractor just, confirmed that it was aluminum clad, the metal clad. I'm sorry, from the outside.
Thank you for clarifying.
Sorry about that. I mean, I mean, again, just sort of like fell on a different thing. So sorry about that. So I believe that it is aluminum clad on the outside and the paint grade wood inside. Sorry.
So Jeld-Wen makes an aluminum clad window.
Are you saying that?
One's
Are you asking that or stating that?
Well, I didn't know that, but Adam, if you've encountered that.
No, well, yeah, I'm on their website right now.
As am I.
Most of my knowledge is that most kind of Jeld-Wen windows have been vinyl clad, and I see that a lot of them are, but it's possible that they make an aluminum clad window, and I'm just not aware of it. Yeah, I'm not doubting whether or not that's true. I'm just, at first when I glanced at them and saw Jeld-Wen, I thought, that's why I asked if they were vinyl clad. So I'm not sure.
All right.
So I think that we can definitely send you the cut sheet of the windows that we put together. Then it's probably clarify the overall assemblage of the windows.
Thank you.
Before we continue though, do we normally take public comment before we begin to discuss this? I think we ought to. Does any member of the public want to weigh in on this?
For any member of the public who wishes to make a comment, public not applicant team, please use the raise your hand function and I will unmute you.
Mr. Chair, the usual procedure is we take public comment before we have discussion by the commission, just the way you're doing it. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
And I don't see any hands raised for comment on this. So you may close the public comment.
All right, we'll close public comment portion of this part of this case and continue with this discussion. The windows that are there are an improvement over what was there. That angle, what we approved originally, I don't know. This is a more monumental building, which would benefit more from a aluminum clad, but we've understand that these are aluminum clad windows. They, from the pictures, look better. I would agree that they are a deeper site, more depth to them. It's hard to tell when we don't really see up close what the brick mold is in the sill and how they're trimmed out and whether the mullions, some of those details that I can't really see in these photos so well. Who else has thoughts on this?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I don't have thoughts on it, but I have a question, if I could, of the applicant team. What address did you use with ISD to file for the building permit for these windows?
Sarah, I was not involved when they, I'm only involved at this point. And I'm gonna ask, I believe
Is it Reggie Correa?
Reggie would be able to answer because he was the one who applied, and I think he was given direction by inspectional services. So I'm going to ask that Reggie answer that just because I think he'll be more thorough.
Okay, Reggie, can you unmute yourself? I've got you unmuted on this end. I think he might have stepped away. He's on paused.
I
Yeah, he's
believe
not.
he wants 55 Davis Square.
That's what I thought. Okay. Thank
Yeah, I
you.
guess my only comment to add is I went on Google Maps to do kind of a street view. And there was originally what looked like a pretty nice brick molding on the windows. And I'd like to, Chair Parks' comment, I guess I'd like to see a close-up or confirmation that that brick molding stayed or how they were trimmed out. But and I guess my only other question is, as I see this, I think this was already stated, but you just replaced the second floor windows, but the third floor windows are still the older windows. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Also, this is Ann Vigorito. Regarding the address, I did work on the licensing commission end of this, and they had always had us using the address of 55 Davis. So everything I've ever seen has 55 Davis on it. This is the first time I'm seeing, on the agenda, I see 49-55, but everything generally says 55 Davis, if that's helpful for clarification.
Thank you. I actually don't see building permits for the windows in the building permit system. Did you guys obtain building permits for this from ISD? I don't see anything in 2021.
I think it would have been in 2020, Sarah, perhaps. Maybe they applied then towards the end of 2020, because I know it might have taken a little bit. They did a lot of work because they also did the interior as well. And I'm on a text thread, and Reggie is saying he can't speak. He's saying his microphone's not working.
Okay. Yeah.
He
So
messaged me saying he got a permit for the entire project.
okay. So I am suspecting that what happened was this maybe was wrapped into the interior work, and the interior work did not include a request from the HPC for the windows. So I don't see if the windows were applied for separately, but interior work is always done separately from the window work. I'll dig through this a little bit more, but right now I don't see a separate permit for the windows from ISD.
Okay.
If I may, I've just been looking at the General website, and they do make an aluminum clad wood window. So I can verify that they do make one. I don't know whether these are what is installed at the Somerville Theatre, but I do know they do make one and offer it
Thank you.
as a replacement.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Sorry, I think I've dug through the rest of that file, and they received a certificate of non-applicability for interior work only. but the windows were not spelled out in that application. So
Okay.
even though one thinks of like, oh, I'm going to change out these windows, when you're looking at the interior of your building, right? It affects the exterior of the building, and a lot of times that's what property owners don't think of. But that is also why we have certificates of non-applicability for interior work, because you don't have any purview over that. Windows are a totally different story. So this is, yeah. That's
I'm
the
looking.
result of my investigation here, and I'll just mute myself now.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm looking at the architectural drawings that accompany the report here, and there is one that assigns window keys to those. So I don't know if there was a construction drawing set that included a window schedule that kind of incorporated new windows in the project, or if that was just kind of added. We don't, I don't see anything scheduled on those windows.
So let me just kind of clarify one more time that when we started the project, we didn't anticipate to replace the windows. So, but when the permit was, initially filed, we didn't have that as a part of the scope of the work. We only recovered and then realized that we needed to replace the windows after some point into the work. So that's why there's a discrepancy. There's a lag between the timeline.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Or I guess make a statement? I understand what you're saying. However, I understand what you're saying, but this is, you can't go forward ever and just go ahead and replace stuff and then ask for permission later. I mean, you are, right? Because that's the situation that we're in. But I know that y'all have been working on this building for a long, long time. And it's a great building. We love it. We're glad that you have it. We're glad that you're doing really interesting things with it. But we really need you to apply with ISD and apply with the HPC. We try to be really responsive as staff, but this is not really a situation that any of us want to find ourselves in again, particularly from a staff standpoint. And I'm sure that the HPC doesn't either, and I'm sure you don't. So I would ask that you be on top of it next time.
I mean, absolutely. I really apologize for the situation because of, I know that it's really not a great excuse, but so we kind of went back and forth during construction, and then we thought that the other party was going to reach out to ISD. So we kind of, this kind of fell through the crack, to be honest with you. And when we both said, okay, so you're gonna file with the ISD, file amendment, then there was a miscommunication between design team and then construction team. So that's what took place, to be honest.
But
I want to emphasize one, sorry, go ahead, Vice Chair
I
Kelly.
just want to say someone placed that order and must have had sufficient confidence that it was, all things are a go, because it's a significant investment.
Exactly. So the general contractor, construction team thought the design team filed with the ISD amendment and the historical the team. So that's, I know that given the amount of time that we had to work on this project, you would think that that's kind of unbelievable. But I mean, to be honest, that's what took place.
Right, but I want to emphasize, as I did before, that that it's in a historic district, and even if you'd filed with ISD, and even if ISD had said okay, you still were supposed to know that it was not okay until you came to historic preservation.
Right. Yeah, you're
So
absolutely
it's not only that you made the mistake of not going to ISD, you
Right.
also made the mistake of not coming to historic, separate from whatever ISD told you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that's,
Diane, if I could interrupt, this is Ann Vigorito. You know, Reggie is still having problems with his microphone, but he is messaging me, and he's saying that when they applied for everything as one, including the windows. And he's further telling me that when ISD came out and inspected, they saw the windows, and that's when they told them, or told Reggie as the, you know, as the contractor, that he needed to get HPC approval. And I believe that's when, you know, they were first awarded. Diane, the architect would not have known. I mean, she drew the plans and so forth, but, you know, Reggie is the one who pulled the permit, and this is what he's giving for information.
One question I have on page 15 of the report, there's a picture close up of like an archtop window. I guess it's not really an archtop window. It's an assembly with an arch on the top. Is that on the side of the building? Where is that located?
that's on the side of,
Okay. And was any work done on the arch part of it, or was it just the window where we see the JELD-WIN stickers?
I think from memory, looking at it, Mr. Wiley, that it was also done on the arch.
I mean, I guess I'll just
live close by and I've walked past this to have a look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll speak very bluntly if I will. And I mean, this would be one thing if it was a slip, and I guess I don't think I would have approved or recommended windows like this on an important building like this. To be honest, I don't think they look good, and I don't think they look historic. So that's just my opinion. I understand where you are and everyone's in a bind and it happened, but especially like that, the details on that archtop window, and I'm not convinced the brick molding stayed. And to be honest, on such an important building and such an important place, they just don't look that great to me. So I wish I would have had the opportunity to give some input on this, but I don't know if I would have thought these were appropriate.
Archtop portion was never really changed because we couldn't really, you know, replace that portion. So there's a 6 to 8 inches difference between the archtop window and the double hung, set up a triple double hung windows below, and we never replaced that. And whatever the molding, the brick molding you're referring to, exterior wise, we kept the moldings from any masonry opening from the outside. So if there were moldings, the moldings will put back on, because again, we didn't change the masonry opening or the way the windows depth, so we didn't place the filler or anything along the line. So I don't know, when you say the brick molds, it looks like there was a brick mold before. I don't know which picture.
The only close-up picture I have is on page 15, and the brick molding looks different than what I'm seeing, what was originally there on Street View, but it's possible that that had a different detail around the side of the building. But again, without any close-up or details, I don't know. So, I mean, I'm not, personally, my opinion is that I don't feel comfortable approving these windows until we at least get some more information, and maybe we can break out that separately and push it to next month and get some more information. But I don't know what this close-up is, but the brick molding looks different than what was there originally to me. I mean, we would need to see a cut sheet of the window, and I don't know, more information is what I would ask for.
This is Ann Vigorito. I mean, I'm being told by the contractor that, you know, the molding is the same. They did not change it.
Okay,
Nope.
again, the picture I have, it's different, but that's because it might be on a side of the building, like this picture next to the arch top. So
Yeah, Adam, it's hard for me to tell. That brick mold looks like your classic kind of OG-ish, I don't know what you call that shape on the brick mold that projects and has a reveal around the brick.
yeah, and then the front originally had a little more detail to that. But again, it's hard. I'm just zooming in on, actually, I'm seeing some inconsistencies on the front. They weren't all the same originally, so I don't know. Yeah, I think this not atypical for a building to have different profiles around different parts of the building.
Yeah. Regarding that transom, the arch top, I totally agree with you. That I'm hearing that was there before, which would be the only excuse, because otherwise that's a complete contradiction with the windows. It's a much fatter profile. Would have done something different. If you didn't touch that, then I guess that's what's there. I think.
Mr. Chair, Anthony Figueredo again. The arch part was not changed at all.
Okay. I'm not so bothered by the window itself, assuming that the brick mold is the same or matches. And I agree with Adam. It'd be nice to confirm. I guess we're being told that it is the same, and I have no proof to the contrary other than what you're seeing in Google Street View. I think the color, if this were an aluminum window, would have been nice to have some other finish than stark white in a building like that. It'd be nice to see something that kind of matches the brick joints or picks up on something else. So I don't know that we would have liked that. We don't dictate color for paint, but we do for pre-finished things.
Right, and
Yes.
Well, you know, Eric, when Mr. Chairman, when I look at the picture of it in 1914, which is on the Form B, the windows all look to be painted white.
From 1914.
Yeah, look at Form B.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're light colored, black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think white is a tragedy. I just think there'd be an opportunity to have tone it down just a little bit. That's not a deal breaker for me in this case. I think I'm generally, if you'd been presenting me with that particular window as an aluminum clad window, I don't think I would have rejected that there. I would have had a lot of questions about other areas like the integration with the arches and all that. And I get that you didn't do those, so I don't think we could force that, a bigger project than you had in mind. But there's nothing fundamentally egregious about the type of window you put in there. It's the same style. It has perhaps a slightly more monumental sightline to it, which I think is probably a little bit better in this case, being a larger brick building. Yeah. Who else hasn't weighed in? Anybody? Go back to this. I think it's a net improvement. I guess that's what I would say. I'm just very annoyed that we're hearing about it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I believe this is a fault of contractors and of management of the project in looking to the quality of the job they do, that they don't ensure that they dot all the I's and cross all the T's. But when I look at the post-installation photograph of the facade, the Davis Square Street side of it, I do notice that the windows on the second floor, the sashes are far thicker than the sashes on the top floor. And so it does appear to be, it does appear to be a visual difference when I look at it, which I find disappointing.
And I guess this is Adam Wiley again. I would add that looking back at the original, well, not the image on page 16, this is more of a question, but I certainly would have maybe suggested that we went back to a 2/2 because I think that would have looked really great at potentially no additional cost. But had this been presented to us, I feel like that's a real missed opportunity, and that the 2/2 would have looked really nice. So it's just I mean, we're comparing it to some pretty bad 80s windows that were there, but if the windows were being replaced, it sure would have been nice to go back to the 2/2 look.
So I will share that I'm looking at the Crystal Ballroom website, and there's a historic photograph under their More tab and down where it says about the venue. So it's crystalballroomboston.com/about. And the cars in the photograph look to be sort of circa 1920s. And the windows, surprisingly, look to be 1/1s. And it also shows how the signage for the building and the Crystal Ballroom appeared on the facade. It was up above the second-story windows.
Well, that's consistent with the 1914 image as well. It's on Form B.
All right, well, we need to decide on this. We can't really do anything about the fact that the scope is limited to the second floor. There's going to be an inconsistency. Were we to go ahead with allowing these, I would suggest obviously that we precondition that in the third floor match these. If they ever do them, that they can't use a different window type. So the image, I haven't gotten to that page, Robin, but you're finding an earlier picture that shows a 1/1.
Yes, so it's, are you on the Crystal Ballroom website? It's crystalballroomboston.com. And you'll see in the menu, there's, it says more with the down of options.
Yeah.
And down
Okay.
to the venue.
Yeah. I personally, I'm okay. I would be okay with those windows. I don't see it as being necessary to remove them and put something else in. On the assumption that the brick mold is indeed the same or matching it identically. But what do other people think?
I think I've shared my opinion, but I'll state it pretty simply. I don't think they're an appropriate window for the building, and I would vote no, I think.
Okay.
But that's my opinion. I don't think they look good on this building.
And
Well,
And-
Sorry?
my impression is that we probably would not have approved them if they had come to us before purchasing them. And I'm really dissatisfied about how we got to where we are now, with them not having gone either to ISD or to us about it. So I'm inclined to vote no as well.
Okay.
I guess I should add a little proviso to mine that I feel like my current knowledge that I have, I don't feel good about them. Maybe with a little bit more information about the window and confirmation that the brick molding is in fact there and some more information, I could be persuaded to think about it. I don't feel comfortable with it now. I don't know if there's a way to bump the window portion to next month with some more information, but that's something that I'll add.
I think we
I
could.
tend to agree with Mr. Wiley on that. And
Mr.
one of the
Kirby?
things that I have in mind here is that if we did approve it, it could create a very dangerous precedent that people could just go willy-nilly and change windows to their heart's desires without coming through the HPC for either advisory or for confirmation and a certificate of non-applicability to do the right thing. rewarding contractors for trying to dodge the system effectively.
And
I'd
I'll
like
also
to
add
make
that-
sure that we do this correctly and that we don't create a precedent.
Sorry for cutting you off. I think I alluded to it, but I think I'd feel differently if this was a residence on a tucked away side street. I just think this is a very important, very prominent building for Somerville.
It is indeed.
To put it bluntly, I don't want to cringe every time I walk by it, which is often. They're very important windows, in a very important place.
Mr. Chairman, if I can interject.
Yes.
So given how the board members are feeling about the issue with the windows and considering you haven't brought up the sign yet, but there are some issues with the sign as well, and that is currently not zoning compliant. And at this time, staff's recommendation is that they come back at a later time with a sign that is zoning compliant before we give recommendations. It might make sense to have the applicant come back. I would say the earliest would be January, just because the deadline to have submitted for the December meeting was today, since the December meeting is on the second Tuesday of the month, and that really doesn't, even if we gave the applicant some time, enough time to figure out those issues. This week just wouldn't be enough time to figure anything out if we even extended the deadline for them. So my recommendation is you should have them come back in January meeting.
Wendy, when is the January meeting?
Let me look right now.
It would be the third Tuesday in the month.
Yes, it would be the 18th of January.
I mean, my thought process on this, obviously I'm on a text thread with Mr. Freeman as well as the contractor. And I do think, there's obviously some concern about seeing the windows. Perhaps we can get you some better pictures, or maybe even video might be helpful. I'm just trying to think what might work. And, from what, the thought process has been for the Somerville Theater is they would ultimately like to do the third floor windows. And of course they would want them all to match. So that would be the goal. But, and I understand, about the sign being zoning compliant, and it might take, perhaps having a couple of different options might be a thought too, so that the commission can get a feel for a couple of different things, because there are some older photos that we have reviewed, and, there are various different looks, let's just say, of what was there. The crystal ballroom sign that went across the building, I don't think that would be zoning compliant currently. But the reason why they want the sign where they place it is that's the actual entrance to the crystal ballroom, and they don't want to have any confusion with the theater itself as well. But and I'm being told by the contractor that the application for the windows was with ISD. That's what I'm being told. And I know, Sarah, you said that, it's not there. I mean, maybe it was put in with the interior, but maybe I can have, in the interim, maybe I can have the contractor try to get a copy of that, and we can send that over in a package as well.
Yeah, I think continuing it's a good way to go, because I don't think the windows are going to fly this hearing, so I think we continue that. And you all raised some good points about them. This is sort of setting a precedent for the rest of the building, so get it right now as opposed to later on. So would you be willing to, and regarding the sign, we haven't talked about that yet, but I have some issues with the LED, what do you call it, the runway part of it. And I feel like we really should have a little more of a package to look at for that. So are you good with continuing? A phone. Are we going to? Is that the preference of the applicant that we continue this to the January meeting?
Yes, I think that would be a good idea, and we'll get some photos, and I don't know, maybe a video might be helpful. Sometimes pictures aren't as clear. We can try to do both so that you would have a better understanding of what, what the windows are.
And may I interject with regard to the sign, understanding that the design that comes back will be zoning compliant? It would be really helpful to have better illustration of what it would actually look like, not just kind of a computer mock-up. Presumably you wouldn't be using Comic Sans on a raceway, even if you were trying to do a raceway, which we probably, we'll have a lot of discussion about. But it would be really helpful to see more clearly, and even perhaps a very specific example, another example of the kind of sign that you're proposing, because it's from this package that we've received, what we have just doesn't feel like enough to go by.
I totally
if I
agree with
might
you.
add
I
to
think that there definitely a lot of confusions kind of came about because of the lack of some of the information we should have provided as far as some of the existing window conditions previously and what were put together. So I think that given we get a next hearing, we should be able to provide with the oldest some of the conditions that were before the replacement and so forth, and clearly about the signage as well.
If I may, through the chair, I believe that the city also has regulations from ISD and OSPCD on signage in the city. And I'd like to ensure that anything that was submitted to us for approval for historic consideration would have also met the base standard line of the city's requirements for exterior signage before it gets submitted to us.
I think that's a reasonable
Sure.
request.
Is that correct, Ms. White? Is that reasonable?
Yes. Yep, yes. I mean, that's the bare minimum it should meet.
Yeah, going the other way that could get tweaked after we've okayed it, and then we suddenly don't have an acceptable sign anymore. So, yeah,
Right.
Yes.
okay.
Right.
Well, let's vote to continue this then. And do we need a motion for this? We talked about this back and forth. This is
So,
Eight.
Mr. Chair, we'll need to have the request for continuance in writing.
Yeah.
The staff, Ms. White is
No,
shaking her head no.
No, you don't need to have it in writing. You can do it in the meeting itself. If it were before the meeting took place, then we would take it in writing. But you can actually agree to this in the meeting and take the vote.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
all right. Well, let's hold a
In that
vote.
case, I'd like to move to continue this to the January meeting.
Okay. We have a second.
I second that.
Second,
Okay. All in favor of continuing HBC Alt 2021.54, 4951 Davis Square to the January hearing, say aye.
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 Opposed? Roll call, Mr. Bauer,
yes,
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Wiley,
Yes.
Mr. Bingham,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. So we'll see you again in January.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right, the next case that we have is we're coming to the determinations of historic significance. The first one is HBC DMO 2021.26, 38 Laurel Street. The applicant is Shang Yang. Owner is the same as the applicant, and the proposal is to demolish principal structure. Do we have an applicant here?
And let's see, if you are the applicant, yes, okay, Shang Yang, I'm going to unmute you on my side. If you would please unmute yourself on your end. And just identify yourself before you speak. I see you're still muted on your side. There you go.
Good evening. My name is Shang Yang. I'm the applicant for 38 Laurel Street.
Good evening. You want to tell us about your proposal?
Yeah, so this property is my father bought this property in the late 80s, and it's been the family ever since. And he has passed away last year. And so now I'm the owner of the property right now. So, it's in fairly poor shape, I would think, and so I'm looking to kind of rebuild it to a sense where, hopefully in a few years, we can, move back in there, I guess that's pretty much the gist of it. It's that, we're looking to make it sort of more livable again as to what it is, because he hasn't really done anything in all the times he's been there. And it's, looking to, just, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, is what I'm looking to do with it.
Okay. Thank you. Would any member of the public like to speak about this?